What am I to do?
Welcome to Razor Branding Podcast with Jackie Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandrusso.com.
Hey y'all, we're in the home stretch. I cannot thank you enough for spending the day with us. Man, we are so close to finishing our full day podcast marathon in celebration of National Podcast Day. And as you know, we've been spending each hour with a different nonprofit, understanding their mission and the work that they do and how the pandemic has affected them and how we as a community can support their efforts to improve our community. And so I am honored to have Melinda Taylor with Lafayette Habitat for Humanity with us today. And she is going to talk about housing. And I can't imagine a more impacted crisis. Melinda, welcome to the podcast.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, thank you for staying up far past my bedtime and helping us out today to talk about what's been going on at Habitat for Humanity. So if you don't mind, kind of start all the way back at the beginning, because I think people don't understand Habitat for Humanity or how it works. So what's the setup? How does that all come to be?
Okay, well, a Habitat is really an organization with a whole lot of moving parts, but Habitat's mission is to create a world where everybody has a decent place to live. And the actual mission statement is seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity brings people together, which is a huge part of what we do, to build homes, communities, and hope. So that's the mission. But the way we enact the mission really is by focusing in neighborhoods and beginning our work in partnership, in coalition with people who are stakeholders in that neighborhood, not just coming in and saying, well, we're going to build some houses here, but rather coming in to a conversation, actually opening up a conversation, asking and listening, what do you want to see here? And knowing that our niche is to create affordable housing opportunities for people who've largely been shut out of the conventional market. So ownership is not within reach of a lot of people who have regular, reliable income, like our homeowner partners do, but they can't afford a mortgage for $180,000, $200,000 starter home in Lafayette. So what we do is work with volunteers and some donated materials, and with sometimes donated property, we gather together the resources to build a house. And we've been fortunate to get a lot of support over the last few years from Lafayette Consolidated Government through their community development department. So we bring in grant funds from that source, which are earmarked for affordable housing. That's pretty much what they can be used for. And we become the developer for the community for affordable housing at a price point that people really making less than 80, even less than 60% of our median income here, which for a family of four, that translates to somebody who makes in the 40s probably. Folks who make that or less can afford a house through Habitat, because we act as the contractor and the lender for the houses that we build. So we're not only a construction company, we're also a mortgage company. And to complicate things even further, we run a resale store. So we have a retail operation to support the mission, and all that goes back into building houses. And we're a social service organization, and we're a community advocate for affordable housing. So, and I'm sure there's probably something I'm leaving out in there.
That's so much. I had no idea that y'all did so many things, honestly. And I try to stay really tuned into all the nonprofits of our area and how they work. And even I am surprised. I thought you organized volunteers and they go and build houses and you give them to people. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a really common misconception. People think that Habitat is a charity in the sense that we gather up resources, build a house, and then hand it to somebody. And that's not at all the case. And our partner families, our home buyers, will be the first people to tell you that's not the case. I mean, not only do they work towards getting to a position where they can close a mortgage with us at the end of the process, and we originate that loan, and it's at currently zero interest equivalent. So that's a Habitat loan. Basically, that's what makes the loan affordable to people. And over a 20 to 30 year period, they're just paying for the cost of the house. And we sell for appraised value. So whatever the house appraises for is the sales price. And they also, before we sell them the house, have a long period they go through that we call sweat equity, which is not just them working on the construction site, which they certainly do. And some really love to do that. And we're about to start 5 more houses. So those families are super excited about getting back to work. But they also do a lot of homeownership education. So we have different approaches that people take. We develop kind of an individualized plan for everybody, and they do financial counseling. They go through, sometimes we put them through Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University just because it's got some really good content, and some people find that engaging. So we kind of develop an approach that fits, and we do in-house counseling with them too. But the idea is to start from point A, where people come into the program, and get to, by the time they're at closing at point B, really the end point, they're really ready more than most people buying their first house. So
Sound a lot more ready than I was. I had
Oh,
no
yeah.
idea what I was doing.
Same here. I mean, I was pretty clueless, and our homeowners know a lot by the time they close, a lot more than I did.
That's
So,
incredible. So,
yeah.
how does someone get into the queue to be the next potential home buyer in the Habitat program?
Yeah, right now we open up applications periodically. So we do this about once a year or so. And we advertise, we let people know, the word spreads through the grapevine pretty quickly. We get a lot of referrals from our current homeowners, and people put in an application. And we look at 3 basic things, which is need, ability to make the monthly payment, so regular, reliable income, and willingness to partner with Habitat. So it's a program where people really have to put a lot into it. So that last aspect is really critical. But we look for people who meet those criteria, and we do what a lender would call manual underwriting. So you don't have to have a minimum credit score, but you do have to show that you have enough income to make your debt payments and afford the house. But our mortgage payments are much more affordable typically than a lot of people are paying to rent a place here. Fair market rent for a 2-bedroom house in this market is over $800 now. For a 2-bed, that's not a house, that's any 2-bedroom unit. So it could be an apartment.
Wow.
Rental prices here are really high, and nobody who makes minimum wage in this community, in fact, a 2 minimum wage earner household would be hard pressed to be able to afford to rent a place here, let alone own one.
Right.
So that's kind of what we're working with, is these folks with regular, reliable income, but just not enough to qualify for a mortgage, or in some cases, people who struggle and pay more than 30% and sometimes more than half of their monthly income just to rent an affordable place. There's like
crazy.
17% of people in this community who pay more than 50% of their monthly gross income for housing. And that is just unacceptable.
Right. It's got to be less than 25%.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, that's what we shoot for when we underwrite mortgages.
Right.
So 30% is considered burden, 50% is extremely burden. People are making choices at that point between the rent, which they say eats first, and food and things for their kids,
Right.
and transportation and insurance, things they need. So,
Ugh.
yeah.
And I cannot believe that average price for a 2-bedroom. That was more than when I bought my first house. That's
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah, the rents here have gone up, and the rental market right now is really tight because of the disaster, because of Laura, and also people are struggling with income disruptions due to COVID. So I'm sure you heard about this from some of the other guests, that we all work together to try to strategize approaches, sometimes creative approaches, to the looming crisis that we have here in affordable housing. And we're in the ownership space. And fortunately for us, our homeowners, all the folks that we work with, very few of them have had the level of disruptions that some other folks have had, because many of them are in essential worker type jobs, and they've been actually picking up more hours in some cases. But we've had a few who've struggled a bit. And we're seeing that really across the spectrum statewide. renters and homeowners both are increasingly getting to a critical point where they can't afford to keep up with their payments. So,
Right.
what are we going to do as a community, as a state, as a nation about this?
How do you go about picking the neighborhoods? Or do you just try to concentrate in one neighborhood and build it completely out? Do you go from neighborhood to neighborhood at different times with different projects?
Yeah, so back in about 2011, we took a step back and looked at how we were operating, both locally and as an international organization, and started to really intentionally take what's called the neighborhood revitalization approach, which is to say, we go in not as the savior of the neighborhood, but as a partner to neighborhoods who are engaged with their residents, their stakeholders in making improvements and lifting up their neighborhood. And we come alongside those organizations as part of a coalition. And, we have that niche of building affordable entry level homes. And we also try to support other initiatives that create to the broader quality of life in neighborhoods. So that's when we started a long term partnership with the Macomb Vise neighborhood. And that's where a lot of our work's been focused over the last several years. We're about to start some work in the Laplace neighborhood, which is very exciting. That's a neighborhood just right across the street from our office here on Congress. And we've been talking to those folks for quite a while, and we've got some property now and are going to be starting to build, we hope, if not this calendar year, probably sometime the first half of next year in that area. But that's our approach, is really to find the people who are there in the trenches at the grassroots level making a difference, and who are passionate and committed to that neighborhood and driving that quality of life forward, and work with them. So that's what we do.
That is amazing. So, how does the process go about for choosing what the house is going to look like? Are there like three different model homes that people can select from? How does that work?
Yeah, we have kind of a stable now of plans that we like to work with that we've built up over the past few years. And what we try to do is incorporate details in the houses, change the elevations, incorporate architectural details that makes the house feel like it fits with the houses around it. So one of the best compliments we got right after going into Macomb Vise is the first two houses we built at 12th and Sterling. Somebody drove by and said, "These houses look like they've always been here, just nice." So, and that's what we strive for. So we work with architects, and we have worked with the UL architecture department in a number of partnerships. So have some houses that are designed to be kind of on the cutting edge of design in some of our neighborhood areas that we've built. But key thing is we really try to make what we build fit and make it an asset to the neighborhood. We don't do cookie cutter. We really do, for the price point, we do what I would call semi-custom homes, where the owner doesn't necessarily have a choice of many floor plans, but they have choices of colors and choices of finishes and materials inside, and some things like that. So it's personalized.
That is awesome. How many projects do you typically do in a year? Like, not counting 20, because I know that's weird, but 19 back. What's typical production?
Yeah, it varies a lot. One year we did 14, which was more than we were really prepared for. It was after Katrina Rita. But our typical number, the number that we're kind of stretching towards to be consistent with, is like 12 to 15. And we mostly build new homes, but we're also getting into the rehab arena when an opportunity presents itself. So we have a house that was donated to us that we're going to be, we hope, rehabbing in Laplace in the next couple of years. We just did a rehab that was donated by LCG. Actually, they owned a house that was unoccupied that they weren't using for the purpose they had it anymore. So they donated the house and some funding to help us rehab it. And it has a new owner. She moved in just earlier this year, actually.
That's
So
incredible. And so, what's the average appraised value for the houses that y'all are building?
Typically, a 3 bedroom is somewhere in the like 115 to sometimes 120 range. The 4 bedroom is 120 for sure. 2 bedrooms maybe 105, 110, and again, we're seeing actually we're our own comps in at least in Macomb Vise. We're not the only new home builder. There's some flippers in there too, doing houses and rehabbing them and selling them. But we've seen our comps go up over the years that we've been building there.
So you're doing that to yourself, though. You're causing your
Yeah,
own prices to go up.
and we actually are cool with that because our desire is to help our neighborhood and our home buyers build net worth. I mean,
Right.
build worth, build ownership. So again, a lot of the folks we work with are people who've been shut out historically of the housing market. In many cases, because until the Fair Housing Act in the '60s and even past that, neighborhoods were pretty much off limits to some of the families that we work with.
Right.
So we aim to change that and
So,
invest in neighborhoods that are historically important to the community.
which I think is so important. I know that gentrification has become a really bad word, but it sounds like with the way you're approaching it, you're talking to people in the community, you're building these houses with the people in the community, for the people in the community. They look like they blend into the community. So it seems like you're all the good stuff with none of the bad stuff that comes from going in and rehabbing a neighborhood like that.
Yeah, we're not going to go in and try to drive up values to drive out people who have lived there for years. And we're very mindful of the need to work across the spectrum of affordable housing needs. So, partnership is a big word that you hear with us, that whole coalition approach, and really trying to not work in a silo, to get outside of our little world here and engage with others who are in the housing arena, like the Housing Authority. I serve on the board now of the Housing Authority, and I hope, we're going to be redeveloping some of the properties, the Moss and Simcoe units that are in Macomb Vise. Those are going to be transformed over the next year or so through a program that will take them down to the studs and rehab them. And that's the kind of thing that we want to see and that we want to support. And actually, I worked with, I don't think you talked to Lee Rashall with Arch, but Lee and I worked together to kind of organize with some of the other folks you did talk to, the Acadiana Housing Alliance. And that's a group trying to work on the bigger picture housing needs and plans for the community. And the Housing Authority is part of that. And the goal of that group is really to get more collaboration, to get more intentional, thoughtful, planned work that's driven by the stakeholders first and foremost, that puts them at the center of the table. So
That's
yeah.
incredible. So how soon can the Housing Alliance really kick off some of these big plans that they're working on?
We kicked off last summer. We had an organizing meeting where we literally kind of maxed out the space we were in. And this year, we've of course hit a few little roadblocks with COVID. And I mean, all of us have been deeply engaged, really some more than others, absolutely 24/7 in trying to help meet the housing needs of people because of the situation with COVID and the inability to do congregate sheltering for people who are really housing unstable right now. So again, Lee, who I mentioned earlier, Arch, is operating a hotel non-congregate emergency shelter for people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness during a pandemic, which no one should ever do. Of course, no one should ever have to be unsheltered and homeless. But in this instance, that came up. And so a lot of our focus has been, we want to focus on the whole continuum of housing needs and opportunities. But a lot of what we've been doing has been focused on this urgent, emergent situation with people falling into housing instability due to COVID, due to job losses or income disruptions, and then Laura, where we have hundreds of people who are struggling to get back to, to their home, but some of them are still here. And some other ones are struggling to get traction and get some of their immediate needs met in Southwest Louisiana. So we're all talking about what is our place. And again, another organization that is collaborative and partners together is the Acadiana VOAD. And there's some overlap with all of us who are working in housing between the Housing Alliance and the VOAD, because the VOAD is the Acadiana Voluntary Organizations Active in Disasters. And a lot of what we do for the long haul for recovery is housing, because that's what happens. The disasters here typically impact housing stock. So we end up working together over a very long period of time, like years, to try to get people back to at least being, if not completely 100% whole, back to where they can live in their house. So literally, like the last house from the 2016 flood just wrapped up. Like the long-term recovery team, which is the housing rebuild subcommittee of the VOAD, just finished working on that house.
From 4 years ago.
From 4 years ago.
Wow.
And yeah, and that's not uncommon. Katrina, Rita, I mean, it was 10 years, more than 10 years before some people were able to get back into housing stability again.
And so we can imagine it's going to be at least that for Laura, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would certainly expect that is going to be the case because of the magnitude of the damage that people are just not even, I mean, the news cycle has moved on, and I don't think people outside of this area and some people in this area don't really realize what happened over there. It's tornadic damage. It's
Right.
not what we typically see. It's unbelievably just chaotic in especially some neighborhoods.
Right.
So.
I was reading some of the reports right after the storm, and they talked about the Category 4, which it was when it reached Lake Charles, is equivalent to an F5 tornado. The same wind velocity and power and strength. The difference is that when an F5 tornado comes through, it lasts about 45 seconds. And what Lake Charles and Southwest Louisiana got hit with was that same level of power for constant 40 miles over the course of 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just unbelievable.
Yeah. It really is. We've been over there doing assessments of some affordable housing that we're aware of, and fortunately, I mean, we've seen some damage that is not irreparable with those homes. So we kind of breathe a sigh of relief with that. But there are others who are just complete losses, and trees just snap. Big old growth pine trees just snapped off at the bottom and on top of structures there. So yeah, it's dramatic.
Right.
And we're all working with our partner organizations over there too. I know you heard from Carly earlier about their partnership with the United Way of Southwest Louisiana, and Catholic Charities here. Catholic Charities of Acadiana is really bolstering the operations of Catholic Charities of Southwest Louisiana. So we're all going over there in some form or fashion, trying to help, as we've been helped in past disasters.
Right. No, we had the great pleasure of talking to Carly and Ben and a lot of the other people that you've had these partnerships with throughout the day today. And so it's fascinating to me to understand how much cooperation there is for everybody working together towards these common goals. And you have to, when you see how large and daunting this task is, it takes more than one group to really accomplish something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it takes a group that's resolved to both trust each other, leave their egos at the door, and just come together and figure out how can we tag team this, and there's no pride of place, or there are no ownership battles. I mean, we really do our dead level best to keep ourselves always in a conversation that keeps us moving forward and focused on the need at hand, and not on who's stepping on whose toes. So
Absolutely.
I think our VOAD here, I mean, part of it is we stand on the shoulders of really some giants in the disaster recovery area, people who built the organization way back in the early 2000s. And they still kind of hang around and help us out. And Tony Crater used to be with Red Cross. He now works for Catholic Charities, but Tony has always got his ear to the ground, with all of it's disaster recovery is super complicated. It makes my head hurt. And this is somebody who works with HUD funds, which are also a challenge in that regard. But because there's so many different entities and systems at play, and they don't always coordinate or smoothly integrate with one another. I mean, we deal with survivors who are just completely at sea about who do I need to talk to? What do I need to do next? There's FEMA, there's going to be our state disaster recovery, Office of Community Development at some point comes along with programs like the Road Home. In the immediate aftermath, there's the Red Cross and the state set up typically congregate shelters, but they couldn't do it this time because of COVID. So these poor Lake Charles folks are like in New Orleans right now, and they can't drive 3.5 hours every day to get back to their homes or their jobs. And, there's just a lot of struggle. And now with COVID, it's even more, it's exacerbated by, other conditions that were existing before the storm hit.
Right. Right. No, it's just amazing. And so when I think about all of the work that y'all are doing in normal, regular, non-disaster times, and so you have obviously some magic that you're able to keep that going while you're also dealing with all this disaster recovery. I mean, how do y'all pull all of that off?
Yeah, it requires funding to do that because we'll need to bring on additional people to help out both with disaster response and working an hour west of here and the logistics of that, and also continuing to build the homes that we're committed to. We have committed funding for 16 houses in the next 18 months or so. Maybe we'll take a little bit longer than that. And so we're looking at both doing that because we are not going to abandon the neighborhood work and don't want to get sidetracked from that. So how do you do both? I mean, you have to ask the community, again, to generously, as they've always done in the past, support the work that we're trying to do. And you have to go outside this area too and try to reach out and get the attention of those national organizations and donors who, may not realize the extent of the damage that we've experienced here.
Right. Well, and I think, we've got the links in the comments for anybody who's watching and wants to help. You can go to habitatlafayette.org. You can go to the Habitat Facebook page, or you can go to the Mighty Cause donation page for this day. And those are all places that will give you information on how you can donate, how you can help, how you can support, because I think this effort is so big, it's going to take all of us to help pull it off.
Yeah, it definitely is. And we're actually looking at, in addition to the local partners that we work with, other Habitat affiliates. We've got some pretty large operations in New Orleans, and they got a lot of help after Katrina Rita, and they're eager to give back and help out over here now. And our partners in Baton Rouge, Greater Baton Rouge Habitat for Humanity, and also West St. Tammany, the North Shore affiliate of Habitat, we're all working together. And I think our focus is probably going to be on trying to support a community that might otherwise be a bit passed over. So, trying to work with people who, unfortunately, inequity exists in recovery systems just as much as it does in the regular day-to-day housing systems that we have. So trying to find those places and partner with other great organizations that do that work. And there are many of them. Southern Mutual Help Association is another one that has worked historically in the rural areas in Iberia and in the coastal parishes. But, they're back trying to do this work as well. So it's a lot. And, trying to organize it and fund it, and really trying to keep our core program going, because that's critical. I mean, we have commitments to families who've been waiting. Some of these folks whose houses were just about to start have been waiting for over 2 years, because there were some delays with this funding. And we're also, because there's a need for some of the funding that we normally would use now for tenant-based rental supports, for just keeping people in stable rental housing. We'll be looking down the road at other sources of funding for we're on the development side of things, really trying to help people get a foothold and build wealth and build net worth. And we don't want to let that go. So we're going to have to find other ways to fund it.
Wow. So we've talked about all these things that y'all are doing. We haven't even touched the Restore yet.
I know, we've got to touch the Restore.
So tell me about the Restore.
Yeah. So we've actually had a Restore since 2007, but for a number of years we operated out of the Schilling Distribution Center warehouse that United Way now has, in an unair conditioned, unheated metal box, basically. I think it got up to 120 degrees inside one day. They had a thermometer in there. I think they threw it away after that, but we moved in 2015. So our 5th birthday in the Johnston Street location is this Saturday.
That's exciting.
So, yeah, we're having a big celebration at Restore Midtown is what we're calling it now. The reason we're calling it that is because there's going to be a Restore North in February next year. We're actually, we made a big commitment and took a leap of faith, especially now that the old Metro Bingo Hall was vacant, and a developer who actually has worked with us before as a kind of a supporter for the home building that we do, he bought the building and approached us as an owner builder about doing a build out to suit us and our needs for the Restore. And it's more than twice the space that we have at the Midtown store. So it's going to look a lot different than it did. And so many people here know that Metro Bingo place. If you went to high school here at a certain period of time, you spent some time there. So it's pretty awesome that, we've got that, and we're going to transform it into something new and different. But we still have the bingo machine. We're going to keep it in there, the little, thing that you pull the balls out of. But that, that really is one of the legs of our fundraising stool, a big one, that supports our mission, because everything that comes from that store, selling donated items. We have very few purchased items in that store. The inventory is donated, and we do pickups. We're one of the few, if only maybe, organizations who actually will come and pick up a donated couch or, furniture that's in good condition, appliances that are still usable, building materials, household goods, all of those things. We give them a second life, so they stay out of landfill, off the curb, and go back into productive use with people who need to do either redecorating or rehabbing on a budget. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, but I got to put a plug in for this Saturday, because we're having a big party with some special sales and giveaways and a live remote at the Restore Midtown, which is right by the Grand Theater on Johnston Street. We're right behind Johnston Street Java. And that's 10 to 5 on Saturday. So come join us and keep your eye out. We're starting to kind of put information out into the public about the new store, and we're very excited about that.
That is fantastic, and everybody needs to go, because I bet there are going to be some great deals and some awesome merchandise.
Yeah, we get some unbelievable donations. We just got a call from somebody who had a 2-bedroom apartment full of really nice furniture. And, the individual sadly is now in hospice care, and he wanted to make sure that everything in there that we could take was donated to the Restore.
Wow.
Which is awesome, because that again, we say it's the store that builds houses. And that's exactly what it does. It supports people actually being able to get into a home of their own.
Right. That is
And our,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. So,
Oh,
and you
just
never know what you're
incredible.
going to find there too. I kind of have to watch out when I go in there. It's like, don't look, don't look. You don't need any more furniture. Um,
It's like a perennial estate sale.
mhm. Yeah, it is. And seriously, I mean, it's just the idea is to keep the merchandise or the things that come in the back door at the donation bay flowing through. So if it stays on the floor for too long, it's going to get marked down and it's
Right.
going to go. So that's the system. That's how it works.
So people need to show up on Saturday, celebrate
Mhm.
the big anniversary, check out what you have, buy what they want, and they keep coming back because with new stuff arriving
Mhm.
all the time, what a great resource to be able to really upgrade and update all your home furnishings.
Yeah, and we love to feature customers upscaling projects. They're taking something and making something new out of it. And we've got somebody who's going to do a demo at the store on Saturday, making a bench out of a headboard, which we did a long ago. We did a project like that. It was Home is Where the Art Is. We had a bunch of youth groups that we had these headboards and they were hideous. They came from a hotel that we got like I don't know, it was like 200 of them, and we couldn't sell them in the old store. And we used to joke that they multiplied at night when we weren't looking because it was like no matter how many we thought we sold, it looked like more. So we finally decided to do this big upcycling project with youth groups, and parents got involved and they created some amazing, really works of art out of those headboards and built benches out of a lot of them. So I have a good friend who we had an auction of the items that people upscaled or upcycled. And one of them, actually, the staff in our AmeriCorps team used Mardi Gras beads and decorated it with a kind of free form. It was like a bayou scene that looked like a Van Gogh painting with the sky, with the starry night sky. It was really amazing. I've never gotten over that headboard.
That's
And
incredible.
my friend still has it, but she bid on it and it went for, a pretty good sum. So, but that's the kind of thing you can find at the Restore. I mean, you can take something that, if you've got vision and some creativity, or if you go on Pinterest a lot, you can find exactly what you need over there for a really cool project.
That is awesome. I love the resources that Habitat for Humanity provides to our community, from places to live to places to stock where you live. It's just, you guys have covered everything. What did I miss? What did I not ask? What should we talk about before we go?
I do want to say one thing more about the Restore, which is that, like every other facet of our operation here, we look for ways to collaborate and partner with other organizations. And we're currently partnering with ARCH, the Acadiana Regional Coalition on Homelessness and Housing. They're trying to get a lot of folks rehoused right now out of the hotel non-congregate sheltering program, and they've set up a little operation called Share House that is at their warehouse. It used to be Cups on Gilbo. That's
Mm-hmm.
where their building is. And they collect donations certain days a week there for people who are getting back into stable housing, because the folks they're rehousing don't really have anything. Um, and they need household goods and furniture. So sometimes people will donate something to them that they really can't use in a small apartment, like a big leather, sectional, or, furniture that just won't fit the places where people are getting in. So we'll swap off, and we also will take items that from our housewares donations, we supply them with items that they put together, kind of just what's needed boxes for their people getting back into stable housing. And we help supply and keep a continual supply line of those items
That
flowing to
is
them.
awesome.
So, um,
That is just amazing. So,
mhm.
anybody watching can go into the comments and see the links for all the things that Melinda has talked about today, whether it's the Restore or Habitat for Humanity, how you can donate, support, be involved, and help really give back to the community and build up these neighborhoods and give people a great place to live. And isn't that what everybody deserves? Melinda, thank you so much for your time tonight. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you staying up late with us and talking to us about what y'all do. It is amazing to me how much I didn't know about Habitat for Humanity before tonight.
So yeah, myth busting number one, we don't give houses away. Remember
Right.
that.
Absolutely. No, it's such a bigger program than that. It's just incredible.
Mhm.
So thank you all very much. Come back at 10. We're going to be talking to the 705. And then we've got one more after that with the American Cancer Society. And then I get to go to bed. So thank y'all for being with us today. Thank you, Melinda, for your time. And thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Jackie. Take care.
Sure. You too.